everybody doing this morning? So this is going to be an interactive presentation. Okay, so I will be asking you to type things in the chat, and I have my cell phone right here with me so I can see what you're typing in the chat. Hi, Tracy. Nice to meet you. Hi, Nathaniel. Thanks for putting a message in the chat. Super excited to be here, and I wanted just to thank the host, Casa Grande Alliance, for inviting me to speak today. So my topic is getting clear on what you want. Many of you who are at this conference for the next couple of days are, making decisions on what your future is going to look like, right? And so what I want to share with you today is a process on how to get really crystal clear on how to make decisions. And you may never have come across this process before. So I do recommend that if you don't have a pen and paper handy or something to write with and a piece of paper handy, go grab one real quick and then put in the chat that you're ready. So let me know that you have a pen and paper ready. I'm looking at the chat right now. So just type in the chat that you're ready. Or give me a thumbs up on the screen if you've got your camera on. Thank you, Annika. All right. Ready? All right, from Mike. Hi, Mike. Awesome. Anyone else ready? Fantastic. All right, then, let's get going. So before we begin, I want you to think about two things today, or just in general in your life, that you are really grateful for. What are two things that you are really grateful for? And then either write them down on that piece of paper or type them in the chat. So I'm going to... All right, so write down, think about two things that you're really grateful for. Oh, that's lovely, Nathaniel. So you're grateful for God and family, your wife and faith. Thanks, Mike. The reason why I ask you to think about what you're grateful for is because when you're in that mindset, it just totally changes the energy that you have around what you're going to think about going forward. It totally shifts your energy. So into feeling into a much more grateful space from where you may have been feeling before. So before you make any decisions about where you're going in your future and need clarity around, get into an energy or a mindset of being grateful. And that just puts everything else that you think about in your future in a much more positive state. So that's one of the reasons why I do that. Wonderful. All right. So I want to remind you that you are limitless. Type in the chat for me, I am limitless. Please type that in the chat for me. Fantastic. Lovely. Wonderful. Yeah, you are limitless. Everything from, and every time you are in a moment of in the fork in the road about where am I going and what next in my future, always approach it from a place of limitless. Okay, and I just want here to remind you that you are limitless. Now sometimes, when we're thinking about our future, right, we might feel a little like this cat under the newspaper, right? How many of you feel a little bit like anxious or nervous or worried about your future? Type that in the chat if that's you. Or raise your hand or put your thumbs up for those of you that are showing your camera. Okay, a little, awesome. And then how many of you feeling a little bit overwhelmed because there's so much that you can look at, so much information, and so it can be really overwhelming with all the information that you have to look at and all the decisions that you can make about your future, all the different classes or programs or high schools or colleges that you can go to. Who's feeling a little overwhelmed? Yep, definitely, right? Awesome. And who is actually feeling super excited about where they're going in their future? Do a thumbs up if you're feeling super excited. Thank you, Nathaniel. Awesome. Or type it in the chat. Who's excited? Kaylee, you excited? I see that you said yeah. Awesome, right? How many of you are feeling all of these things like nervousness, anxiousness, overwhelm, and excitement? How many of you are feeling all of those things? Anybody else? I know I was when I was having a pretty happy and excited. Yeah, me. Awesome interaction on the chat. Thank you. So I want to remind you that you are not alone. I want you to type in the chat, I am not alone. Please go ahead and type in the chat, I am not alone. Fantastic. Awesome. Hi, Alfredo. Great that you joined us. So you are not alone. I want to remind you that you have so much support and resources around you to help you with these decisions that you'll be making for your future. Okay? You are not alone. There is so much support and love for you. Okay. And when you're feeling all these emotions of excitement, nervousness, anxiousness, overwhelm, and all of that, this is because you actually have emotions about your future. You care about your future. You care where you're going next, right? It's totally normal to have all of these emotions. And I want to just say to you, embrace them all, okay? There's nothing wrong with having all these emotions because you genuinely care about your future and where you're going next, okay? And again, I'm going to remind you that there is an abundance of opportunities out there. So regardless of where you might be right now, what your current external environment looks like right now, maybe, you know, you're seeing things in your environment or, you know, your life that really helps you to kind of not see that there's a lot of abundance out there. I want you to just, again, go back into that place of gratitude and remind yourself that you are limitless. Okay, your options are limitless. There's so much abundance and so much for you in your future, that you are an abundant person. Who agrees that you're an abundant person? Type that in the chat. Come on, you are abundant, believe me. Even if you can't see it right now, you have so much abundance. So type in the chat, I am abundant. 100% agree. Fantastic, Nathaniel. Awesome. All right. So I want to, again, I love this quote. If anybody's heard of Louise Hay, she's an amazing, amazing teacher. She's no longer with us anymore, but she has so many videos on YouTube. So if there's anyone that you want to be inspired by, she's one of what I call my teachers. And I love what she says here. The past is over, so it has no power now. The thoughts of this moment create my future. So what thoughts do you have going on between your ears? Right? What thoughts have you got going on between your ears that are affecting where you're going to go in your future? Right? The past is the past. You can only move forward from here. You can always recreate what your future looks like going forward. Okay? Learn from it and move on. I love it. Oh, Tracy loves Louise Hayes. Fantastic. All right. Now, this word because is such a powerful word, because it's used a lot when we make excuses, right? I can't do something because I'm not clever enough. I can't do this because I'm not talented enough. I can't do this because I live in an environment that doesn't allow me to do what I want to do, follow my passion, follow my heart. I can't do this because of all these different beliefs that you might have about not being able to do something. Okay, and a lot of the times they are beliefs from others that we've now made our own, right? We've heard the influences in our lives, our adults in our lives maybe, or our teachers in our lives tell us that you'll never make something out of yourself, or you know, they don't see you being beyond anything than what you're doing right now, right? They don't see you being having any potential potentially, right? And I got told that a lot when I was a kid, right? You're going to turn out just like so and so, right? I got told that a lot when I was a kid. So I believed these things that other people were telling me, and I used them a lot of the time as excuses to not do something, to not believe that I was abundant, not to believe that I was limitless, right? But when I realized that other people's beliefs that I was now making my own are not my truth, it was amazing how the curtain lifted and I was able to see that all of a sudden there was so much more opportunities for me, okay? So change that because from a negative into a positive. I can do this because I have the talent, I have the skills, I have the resources. And if I don't know where the resources are, I can go find them, right? I can do this because. All right, so I'm going to share, is everyone all right if I share a little bit of a story about myself? Just type in the chat if you're okay, if I'm all right to share a story. So I'm looking down here because that's where my phone is. You're right if I share a story? I don't know what OFC stands for, but and you can. All right, thank you. Thank you for your permission. I appreciate it. So the picture that you're seeing on your screen right now is a picture of me and my sister. I'm on the left and my sister Sonia is on the right. It means, of course, oh, thank you, Kelly. And this is, gosh, back in the 70s, and now I'm showing my age, right? But this is when we were in the 70s. This is a school photograph that was taken of the two of us. And behind those smiles, a lot was going on, okay? We lived in what you would call Section 8 housing over here in the US, but back in England, it's basically government housing or council housing. And we lived on the 3rd floor of this apartment block of flats. They're called flats, not apartments in the UK. And it was government housing, basically my sister, my mother and I living in this flat. And our mother was mentally ill. So she was raising two very young children. She's a teenager herself, pretty much raising two kids, and had schizophrenia. And so we were really, really poor because she couldn't hold down a job. Nobody would really employ her because of her mental illness, right? And so what added to that is that we are an immigrant family, right? So we come from the island of Malta originally. And so if anybody's never heard, who's heard of Malta? Anybody? Type in the chat if anybody's heard of Malta. Well, it's an island in the Mediterranean Sea, and it's just below Italy and 300 miles off the coast of Libya. Very, very small island, and I have tons of relatives still living on the island today. So if you can imagine, who's seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding? Thumbs up if you have. My Big Fat Greek Wedding? No? If you can imagine a big Mediterranean Roman Catholic family, that's basically my family. And here's an image of them for you. So these are my grandparents back up here. And then this is me with the circle around my head. This is back in the 80s when Fame was a huge, huge show back then. And so we're a big, massive immigrant family. And when I was born, my mum being a teenager, so she was Roman Catholic, strong Maltese family, got pregnant at the age of 16 with me. And for my family, that was a lot of shame back in the 70s because, you know, teenage pregnancy with a Roman Catholic family, a lot of shame on the family. So when I was born, all that shame was placed on my shoulders. All that shame of me being born in this big scandal in the family was placed on my shoulders. And so I had to live with that growing up. But I'm just going to go back to when I was living with my mum. So we were so poor that my mum didn't really have a lot of money. The only electricity we had in our flat was run by this electricity meter, and it would take a 50 pence coin in order to run it. If we didn't put money in the electricity meter, we had no electricity in our house. Basically, that would mean in England it's pretty cold, so no heating, no hot water, no TV, no electricity. We'd basically be lights out. And our mum would make my sister and I go begging for money on our neighbors' doors. So we would be asked by my mum, hey, girls, go out and ask for money, which was, you know, as children, we didn't really understand the gravity of that because we didn't understand that we needed money for the meter, right? But we would knock on our neighbors' doors, and sometimes our neighbors would give us 50p for the meter so that we could have electricity in our home. And other neighbors would just slam the door in our faces because they knew that we were those, you know, those poor kids living in another apartment in the block of flats. So there's a lot of shame around that. Okay. Now, fast forward a few years, I was probably around 3 or 4, 5 years old when I was living with my mentally ill mother. But fast forward a few years, it's 3 weeks before my 10th birthday. By this time, I'm living with my aunt and uncle. They fostered me. My sister and I have a brother by this point. They're both in the foster care system. And it's about 3 weeks to my 10th birthday. And it's the week between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And the phone rings in my aunt and uncle's house. And I could just feel this massive dread in my stomach. I didn't know what it was about, but I just felt this huge dread in my stomach. And we got the news that my mother had been killed. At this point, my mum was in a locked down mental ward, wasn't allowed out without permission. And she'd managed to escape this mental ward and run across a really busy road and got hit and killed by 3 cars. In that moment, my life completely changed because her legacy suddenly became mine. This is why it was when I was growing up. Anytime I was naughty, I would be told, oh, you're just going to turn out like your mother. They would use my mother's experience as a way to control me, as a way to place limiting beliefs on me about what I was capable of in my future. So I spent many, many years as a teenager believing this, right? But what I'm here to tell you is I proved them all wrong, because I have had a very, very successful 25-year corporate career. I've traveled all over the world. I've managed virtual teams, global teams. I've had a 6-figure salary. And then I now do my speaking and coaching business, which I absolutely love, right? So I proved them all wrong, that my mother's legacy was not my legacy. So what I'm here to remind you is that regardless of where you're at right now, it's not your future. You get to choose your future, and your future is determined by the decisions that you make, right? So how do you deliberately choose and get clear about your own future? Do you have your pen and paper handy, Nathaniel? I see you on the camera. Yes, you do. Thank you. Anybody else have their pen and paper ready? Put it in the chat for me. Ready, Mike? Awesome. Awesome, Tracy. Fantastic. Is this valuable to you so far? Are you finding this talk okay? Give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat. Awesome. Thanks, Nathaniel. Appreciate you. Awesome. All right, so let's go. Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Maria. All right, so let's get to the process that I promised you earlier in the talk, okay? So when you have decisions to make, and this can be used any single time that you have a major decision to make, it could be about your career once you're out of school, right? It could be anything, right? Anytime that you need that clarity, follow this process, okay? So I'm giving you a lifelong tool that you can use going forward, all right? So the first question that I want you to ask yourself is, what do I want, right? So as you're thinking about your future, what do I want? And approach it from a really limitless perspective. Don't worry about your current circumstances. Don't worry about what happened to you in the past. You're not going to take that forward with you in your future. You get to choose, okay? So take a minute to write down, what do I want? I'm going to let you do that for a couple of minutes. Remember, no ceiling, people. No ceiling. No walls. You are limitless and you're abundant. What do I want? And if you're struggling with this question, answer it the other way. What don't you want? Right? And when you figure out what you don't want in your future, the opposite is usually what you want. Okay, so what don't you want if you're having a hard time answering what you do want? So if you could learn anything, be anything, what would it be? And let me know when you're ready to move on to the next question by putting it in the chat. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. So hopefully you've answered this question from a completely limitless perspective. Awesome, guys. Thank you. The question number 2 is, why do you want what you want? Why do you want it? And you have to connect with it. You have to know your why. Why do you want what you want? And again, in the chat, once you're ready, just tell me, say ready. Fantastic. All right. Fantastic. Oh, fabulous. Fabulous. This is awesome. All right. Ayana, thank you. All right. Nathaniel, thank you. Tracy, Alfredo, thank you. Anika and Mike, Maria, awesome. All right. And the third question is, how does what I want and why I want it make me feel? You have to connect with what you want and why you want it from an emotional perspective. If there's no emotional connection to it, it's not going to happen. So how does it make you feel? And there's some inspiration for you on my screen as well. If you're struggling with words of how that's going to make you feel. And check in, where are you feeling these emotions in your body, right? Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Your emotions are your internal guidance system. Okay, don't ignore your emotions. We get told a lot of the time to ignore how we're feeling about something, right? But when your heart and your head and your gut are in alignment, that's basically the 3 brain centers in your body, because your heart, your gut actually have neurons in them that mirror the neurons in your brain. Okay, so when all 3 of them are aligned and you feel really good about something, then you know this is going to be a good thing for you to do. Can anybody relate to what I'm saying? Have you ever had a moment where you're like, yep, everything's aligned, this is what I'm going to do? Tell me yes if you've aligned with that. Thank you, guys. Yes, right? So when you get that feeling, all 3 areas of your body are just like completely in alignment, this is a really good thing. So what you want and why you want it and how it makes you feel, all 3 of those areas need to be completely aligned, and then you really need to identify the emotion associated to those, okay? All right, because that's what's going to keep you motivated. Every time you look at this paper again, this piece of paper where you're writing this down, that's what's going to keep you motivated to make that needle point move, to move you forward towards your future, right? And don't worry about how you're going to get there. It'll figure itself out, right? Okay. So I don't usually do this, but I'm going to ask you to do something right now. I'm going to ask you, based on those 3 questions, what's one action step that you're going to take in the next 2 days to move you forward? What's one action step? And if you don't mind sharing it in the chat, I'd love to see it. And I love that some of you had that alignment. You completely understand what I'm talking about when your brain, your heart, and your gut are all in alignment. It feels really, really good. Awesome. So when you've written your action step down, if you wouldn't mind sharing it in the chat, because that might inspire other people around you in this group, right, to do something the same. Perfect. Awesome, Nathaniel. Can you be more clear about that? Make that more clearer, reinforcing mindset. Awesome, Mike. How will you be more consistent, Nathaniel? What are you going to do? How are you going to be more consistent? Be a bit more specific. Awesome. Mike, how are you going to reinforce your mindset? What are you going to do? What action or behavior are you going to do in order to reinforce your mindset? Anyone else want to share their next action step? Just, it doesn't have to be huge. It can be something really small. Okay, baby steps. Did a massive hike yesterday and I got to the top by taking very small steps. Okay, because I wanted to stay safe and I didn't want to fall over. But it just has to be one small step. Fantastic, Tracy. I love it. I love it. I love it. You're going to make a vision board. Awesome. Nathaniel, that's fantastic. I will tell myself never give up and keep going. That's awesome. Awesome, Nathaniel. Well done. Okay. Fabulous. Fabulous. All right. How's everybody feeling? Good? Thumbs up? To elaborate daily affirmations. Awesome, Mike. To elaborate daily affirmations through faith and personal actions that continue to align with my why and what I want. Love it. Awesome. 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 Right? So do this process every time that you are having a massive decision that you need to make. Okay? That's going to really affect your future. I can give you a couple of examples. The decision when I chose to move from the UK to the US, right? That was a huge decision for me, right? So I had to really figure out and answer these two questions: what do I want, why do I want it, and how does it make me feel, right? And I was in total alignment about leaving everything in the UK behind and taking the job offer in the US, right? When I decided to leave my part-time job and go join a massive corporation, again, right, it had to feel good, right? And I knew it was working towards my future. I wanted to prove everybody's beliefs about me wrong, right? Everybody's beliefs where they saw me in this really small bottle and jar, wrong. I wanted to shatter that bottle and I wanted to shatter that jar and prove them all wrong, right? I didn't believe, when I was a 5-year-old, 4-year-old little girl living with my mentally ill mother, I did not believe, that one day I would be working for a worldwide company, traveling the world, managing global teams, doing IT integrations, earning a 6-figure salary, right? And on top of that, having my own coaching and speaking business, right? When I was that little girl that never used to get a bath because my mum didn't teach us that we should bathe every day. So we were those smelly kids in the classroom with the dirty clothes, right? The hand-me-downs or the clothes from the equivalent of Goodwill, right? We were those kids in class, right? The ones that everybody else would look at. And not very positively, right? So if you can even relate to any of what I'm saying, I'm telling you, you get to choose. Can anybody relate with what I'm sharing right now? Say yes in the chat. Awesome, Sophia. Tracy, all of it, love it. Thank you, Alfredo. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you, Mike, I appreciate that. Okay. So moving on. So when you look in the mirror, even if you feel like a little kid right now, see the lion. Let yourself roar. Let yourself soar, right? See the lion. See who you can be, right? And just take small steps every single day to get you there. Okay, so I'm going to encourage you to be more than your current story. Why? Because you being more than your current story gives the courage to the others that follow behind you to do the same. Okay. I'll never forget it. I was sitting in an internet cafe in Malta and I was visiting my dad in Malta because it was his 60th birthday. And my brother and sister happened to be, they're the ones that I was raised with. They're my aunt and uncle's children. And I was doing an online degree. So I was working a full-time job, traveling the world, doing all these IT integrations. And I was doing a bachelor's degree in business management. And so while I was on this vacation in Malta, I still had books to read, assignments to turn in and all of that, right? And Malta isn't exactly like the US, okay? Its technology infrastructure isn't as phenomenal as what you have in the US. So back then I had to go to an internet cafe to connect to the internet because my parents didn't have internet Wi-Fi in their house that they have over there. So I'm in the internet cafe and I'm doing my online class and I'm typing up an assignment or something like that. And my sister, who's 3 years younger than me, she suddenly came up to me because she happened to be there and I didn't even know. She came up to me and she gave me a cup of tea and a slice of cake. Just to kind of keep me going, right? And I looked at her and I was like, oh, thank you so much, sis. I really appreciate that. When she got back to England after visiting my dad for his 60th too, she signed up to do a psychology degree, right? So you never know how much impact or influence that your actions, your positive actions take, influence those around you. Okay, I had no idea. My sister even told me, she said to me, Carmen, I signed up for this psychology degree because you inspired me that day in the internet cafe. All right. So how do you get to choose, okay, how you influence others, and it's through your actions and your mindset and how you then move yourself forward, okay? And you're going to fall down sometimes, okay? You're going to make a decision and maybe it wasn't the right one. I can't tell you how many times I've had to pivot, right? But that's okay. You get to reset. It's not the end of the world. Learn from it. Bring all that experience with you and take it with you forward, okay? You always get to reset. It's really not the end of the world. It's actually kind of a cool way to learn because most people's journeys aren't linear, right? They're not one straight line. Sometimes they're like this, right? They're very chaotic, okay? But going through that experience makes you even stronger, even more empowered, right? And you can share that journey with others because you've been there, right? You can share your wisdom. You gain so much wisdom along the way. So please, please, I encourage you to be more than what you're seeing right now. Be more than what your current story is, because you get to write your future. Okay, so I do believe that we are amazing human beings, okay? I believe that we always have a choice. So you can always get to choose, no matter how whatever circumstances you find yourself in, you get to choose to change it, okay? You get to choose your mindset, what's going on between your ears, okay? You get to choose your reality. And I believe that we have unlimited potential. Okay, no ceilings in this room, okay? So remember, you are limitless. The universe is constantly expanding. You are part of this universe, okay? So you get to expand too. So the best way to predict the future is to invent it. Don't let others tell you what your future should look like, okay? You get to choose what your future should look like. You get to invent your future on a daily basis. This professor that I'm quoting here, okay, he is an avid rock climber. He works for MIT. He's amazing. He's amazing. And I was watching a show on 60 Minutes, and he totally inspired me because he doesn't have legs from the knees down, right? So he could let that disability prevent him from doing so many things, right? But he's an avid rock climber, and he's like, okay, I have no legs from the knees down. How can I create a future where I can continue to rock climb, right? So he worked with people in MIT to create prosthetics to allow him to continue to rock climb, right? He didn't let his limitation limit him, right? He actually created something that allowed him to be limitless, right? Go do his rock climbing. And it's just such an amazing story. So look up Hugh Hare from MIT and look up the 60 Minutes interview. It's a really, really great interview for inspiration, okay? So he predicted his future because he invented it, okay? And this is a quote from Marianne Williamson's book, A Return to Love. And some of you might be familiar with it. So I want you to read out loud with me this statement: let your light shine. And you don't need to unmute yourself if you can't unmute yourself, but just read it out loud in the room that you're in with me, okay? 1, 2, 3. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our dark, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people don't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And when we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Type in the chat if that meant something to you. Oh, Tracy said, how beautiful. Right, that is deep, Mike. You're absolutely right. I wish I could hear all your voices. Yeah, absolutely. Excellent, Nathaniel. I love your attitude, Nathaniel. It's awesome. Fantastic. Okay, so I do believe that you can ascend your life, take flight, and soar. Thank you, everybody.